Michael Yao Show.
I do want to talk about COVID real quick. It seems to be going up in America. But the one thing I hear on TV a lot is for people that have been infected like myself, that have the antibodies like myself, they always say, we don't know if you can't catch it again. So how long does this take to actually find out if we can catch corona again after we've caught it already once?
They're going to have to do research. It's going to take a couple of probably at least a minimum of 6 months. It's going to have a huge number of people who actually do get reinfected. Now, so far, we don't have any reason to believe that this virus is different than any other virus, right? And every other virus, once you've had it, you can't get that virus again unless it mutates significantly to look differently to your immune system. So that usually takes a lot of time. So the flu, we do get pretty much the same flu every year. It's just that it mutates. And so it mutates and then some more people can get sick. And so that's how it survives. And then it mutates again and again. And the flu is really good at mutating. That's how come it comes back every year. But the coronavirus is like a cold virus, and it mutates, and then we can't see it again. Our immune system can't see it again, but then it's also not the same virus again. The infection is going to be different. So it might be more mild, hopefully. And that's generally the course for most viruses, is they tend to be more and more mild. And that might be what's happening here in Florida, especially where we're having massive numbers of more cases, like something like 10 times more cases. But the hospitals are getting busier, but only in certain places, and not like more busy than they were at the previous peak back in March, April. So, and we're having way more cases, like more than 10 times more. But of course, we are testing more, so we might just be diagnosing more of these milder cases. So it's hard to say. We're not going to know what's happening.
You brought up a good point. From a doctor standpoint, when you have people saying, of course, there's going to be more cases because we're testing more, that is true to a certain point, but that doesn't mean the level of people being positive, though, needs to go up, because you could test everybody right now for malaria, and you're not going to get a huge positive sign of malaria. So how does a doctor look at this? Because I hear some doctors like, well, yeah, if you test more, you're going to get more cases back. But I hear both sides trying to take this fact and kind of set their own tone for it. So what is your take on it?
Well, when we're talking about a pandemic, and the whole point of it is that it's hugely prevalent in the population right now. And when we have it's a totally different conversation than we're talking about, like you said, malaria, right? Like let's take what you just said about malaria and compare what the results would be right here in the United States versus where they would be somewhere where it's the word for it is endemic, which means like it's almost always in the population. Pandemic means it's around the world. But
so a flu would be an endemic.
Flu is an epidemic.
Epidemic. Okay. All right.
Yeah. It's an epidemic because it has an outbreak every year of different strains. So that's kind of different. But malaria, if we test, so say we test everybody in Florida, I don't think anybody's going to have malaria here unless they just came back from a place where you can actually catch malaria, which is South America or Africa. So now let's say you go to a South American country where they have a lot of malaria. They have a lot of malaria and they don't test everybody very often. So if you have more people with the disease than you have who have access to the test, you're going to find that the numbers go up the more that you increase your capacity to test, right? So it's just there's a relationship between how common the thing is versus how useful the test is. It's not useful to do a malaria test here because nobody has malaria, but it's useful to do a coronavirus test because we have so many people having the coronavirus and we haven't even gotten a handle on how many it is. So we can't even keep up. You have to do at least the amount of people who might have the virus to see. Like if you want to know how many people actually have it at any given time, you have to test a huge portion of the population so that it's statistically significant. So, and you have to be a statistician to answer that. The statisticians are kind of helping a lot of the interpretation of what's happening now. But I think the statisticians have done a terrible job at predicting what's going to happen, not because they're bad with numbers, but because they're bad with physiology. And I don't think there's been enough doctors like that are experienced with the actual flu and the variation in the possibility of response of one person to the same virus versus their neighbor to the same virus. So the epidemiologists, they just look at the numbers. They don't look at the nuances that doctors that are actually practicing physicians like myself and Dr. Drew Pinsky, whose show I've been on a number of times, talking about this and how the wrong people are doing a lot of the talking, to understand what's actually happening now. So the epidemiologists are like, they're really good at figuring out what happened. And when the same kind of thing has happened a number of times, they're sort of good at predicting the numbers, the numerical effect of it, right? So they predicted that this thing, this coronavirus was going to spread like wildfire. And they got that right. It spread like wildfire. But where they weren't very accurate was the radical differences in how one person with coronavirus is going to be impacted compared to the next person. Because there's a huge, huge variation. I mean, that's why a lot of doctors at the beginning were getting like, practically they were getting death threats for saying, oh, it's very much like a flu. And they didn't mean it for any political gain. They're just trying to help compare it to the vast variation in the reality of the fact is that the flu virus can be deadly. And it is deadly every year. It's deadly. And we don't shut down the economy. But there's, some people can be infected with the flu, not even know it, and transmit the flu to like their 85-year-old grandmother who will die because she got the flu and she's 85. That happens every year.
But you're talking right now about early on. Now nobody would say that has any sense. It's like the flu.
Would say what?
That corona is like the flu.
Oh no, it is like the flu. And this
how
is
it?
Saying.
But the flu doesn't kill like what 130,000 people in 3 months?
In a bad flu year, if we didn't have vaccines, right? So this is kind of like
we
lose the nuance, and it's very, very, very important. If we didn't have vaccines for the flu would actually be more deadly than the coronavirus has been so far. The other thing about the flu that makes it different.
But isn't it a bad comparison when people are comparing it to the flu, but knowing we have a vaccine? Doesn't that give people that aren't educated in the medical field the wrong idea, and then now they're running around saying it's like the flu? The thing is, you got a vaccine.
It totally does. It totally does. You have to say
but those people never say that. Those people never.
No. Well, they don't get the chance. They don't get the chance, right? Because they get cut off because everything is sound bites, right? Because they're like, is it like the flu? Yes or no? And then you get your wait a second. Medicine is not meant to be discussed in sound bites. And there's nuance, there's different, there's all kinds of information that people need to be introduced to understand the concept. And so you're exactly right. It's the extreme. Some people take the same sentence and hear it one way versus the other way. But if they could just hear another follow-up sentence, like, okay, it's like the flu if we didn't have a vaccine for the flu.